You are listening to Integrity Radio. I'm your host, Lakeisha.
And I'm your co-host, Sandra Gage, CEO and President of Integrity Stewardship Enterprise.
And today we're talking about the growth of poverty in America.
Yes, let's talk about that. Poverty has been with us for a very, very long time. Did you know that 14.5% of the United States households, which is nearly 49 million Americans, struggle to put food on their table?
I can believe that. The price of food is pretty high and the pay is pretty low.
It sure is. And I don't think it has to do just with this economic crisis that we've been having. I think that we have been dealing with poverty for many, many decades and years. Poverty just doesn't seem to go away. So let's talk about that today.
All right.
Did you also know that in the United States, hunger, it's not just hunger, but it's also that it's poverty that keeps people hungry here, even in America. We talk about people being hungry overseas in other countries, but we don't really talk that much about the hunger that is going on right here in the United States, or the poverty that's going on in the United States.
What do you mean?
I mean, we have all these federal programs that are going on, and a lot of them are dependent upon federal programs in order to make it, in order to eat, in order to get an education, in order to do this, in order to do that. The definition of poverty is basically being able to provide for their basic necessities.
Right.
So what happens if those programs should happen to go away?
People would be in big trouble and there'd be a lot of suffering.
A lot of suffering. And unfortunately, we don't really think about that. But today, I'm glad that we're talking about that so that we can bring it to the forefront of people's minds. Did you know that statistics say that the U.S. Census puts the number of Americans in poverty at levels never seen before? That in the mid-1960s, President Lyndon B. Johnson launched the federal government's so-called War on Poverty.
Now, what was that supposed to do?
The War on Poverty was supposed to be the next step after the New Deal with President Roosevelt, where he was trying to come up with programs in order to get poverty under control.
Is that possibly where Medicaid and all that stuff and food stamps came into play?
It's a possibility. I know that the welfare system and Social Security came into existence with the New Deal, and so the government probably added to that.
So obviously it didn't work out too well because we still have an issue in our country.
We do, and unfortunately I still can't understand why is the focus always outside of the United States. It's great to help other people. I understand where we have people in Africa and all different countries that are dealing with poverty, but why are we not taking care of our own? Why do we have people that are homeless? We have people that are unable to make it even though they're working. Why are we not focusing on taking care of our own as well as taking care of the people outside of the United States?
When you say we, I wonder which we that you're talking about, because it seems like our government is more concerned with making more of us in poverty than helping those that are already in it.
That's true when we start looking at the political situation, which that might be another topic for another time. But one party is interested in keeping these social programs to help the poor, and then there's other parties out there that want to get rid of those type of programs altogether because they think that we should pull up our bootstraps and work hard and that we can get ourselves out of poverty. But if we haven't been able to get people out of poverty for this many years, I don't think doing nothing is going to make the problem go away.
I totally agree with that.
Also, did you know that today there's approximately 20% of all children in the U.S. living in poverty? Also, did you know that today that there's approximately 20% of all children in the U.S. living in poverty? And incredibly, it's a higher percentage of children living in poverty in America today than it was back in 1975.
I wonder why that is.
I just don't understand it. I just don't understand why this isn't on the news. Why it's not continually in front of us to make us have our hearts think about doing something about it. Why is that we have Congress that are dealing with all these issues that they can't even come together, where we still have people that are actually starving. We have children that are actually going to school that don't have a home. If they don't go to school, they don't get a decent meal. So poverty is all around us.
Yes.
I also understand that there are a number of children that are living on $2 a day or less in the United States, and that number has grown to 2.8 million. That number has increased by 130% since 1996.
And I couldn't imagine trying to eat off of $2 a day. Not even for one meal.
No, $2 is ridiculous. I mean, what you gonna get? 2 Happy Meals for $1?
And that's not healthy.
And a Happy Meal, I don't know if a Happy Meal is $2 or if you can get one for $1. I know you could probably get a hamburger for $1, but it's not going to be nutritious.
Right.
It's not going to really help them, have a nutritious meal.
Right.
Besides people being in poverty and not being able to make it because they don't have enough money, then there's the other side. Besides that, there is also people who are in poverty and don't have any money and don't have the necessary necessities that they need, and maybe they don't have a job. But then there's another side to that. What about the people that are working a job or working 2 and 3 jobs, but yet and still they still do not have enough money to meet their necessary needs? They are called the working poor. And it is said that that's exploding now, that you have people that are working all these jobs, but they still are in poverty.
Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense.
The statistics in this situation is that there is 1 out of every 4 workers in the United States that are bringing home wages, but they are still at or below the poverty level. That's sad.
So that kind of makes you think about how people perceive the poor or people in poverty as lazy, but it's not true. Everyone that's in poverty is not a lazy person. They're trying really hard to get out of it, but it seems like all the odds are against them.
That's true. And that makes me think about just recently, didn't the minimum wage get increased?
Yes.
So I'm glad about that, because possibly that will help. But if you have a family of 5 or 4 and you're not able to make it, probably those few extra dollars is still not going to bring you out of that poverty level.
Right. And as soon as the minimum wage goes up, it seems like something else goes up in price, like food or gas. It really doesn't seem like it's helping because it's not moving fast enough.
And taxes.
True.
Because, of course, if they got an increase, the taxes is added onto that. So it's not really as much money as we might think. Also, I'd like to say, right now, there are more than 100 million Americans that are enrolled in at least one welfare program that is run by the federal government. And that does not include Social Security or Medicare.
Wow.
100 million Americans. That's a lot of people.
Yes.
And did you know that welfare used to be an entitlement program where you were legally had a right to have welfare if you needed it? But that has changed. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yes, it used to be called the AFDC, the Aid to Family and Dependent Children, years ago. But in 1996, there was a bill that passed called the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act. And that bill changed welfare as we knew it.
Yes.
That bill required that it would end the welfare entitlement part, where you would just get a check just by going in and signing up. You have to work a job in order to get your benefits. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm familiar with the program, but in my personal opinion, there's always holes in the program that doesn't exactly help people to get to where they're trying to go. As far as them having to work to get the money, I mean, the idea sounded good, but the follow-through wasn't so good because they're not really helping them find a job. They're just forcing them to take training classes that don't necessarily help them. It doesn't see where they are. They might have a degree already. I've seen people that were teachers with degrees or in other fields with degrees and just needed to find another job, and they treated them like they didn't even have a high school diploma. So to me, it's a waste of time and money, and it doesn't really help the person find a job in their field.
That sounds like a real problem. And one of the things about the fact that they have to find a job or they need to begin working is that under this new bill or act, they're only able to do this for 2 years, get benefits for 2 years, even if they're working. And after that, they're going to get kicked out the program. Now, this bill, which became an act, was in 1996. And this is 2013. Maybe they need to be looking at that again because of the way the economy has changed. That what's going to happen to all these people that are under this new act and the 2 years is up and they get put off the program, but there's no jobs.
Right.
There's no jobs for the people that was working before.
Right.
Because of the economy right now.
Well, actually, that goes with the unemployment as well, because they changed something in that recently where after your initial 6 months or a year of being on there, there was supposed to be a backup where you could still qualify to get additional unemployment, but they cut that short as well. And like you said, in the economy we have today, there's more people who are out of work and might need that for a little bit longer. So it's kind of just cutting people off at the wayside.
That's true. Another requirement of this act is that there's a lifetime limit of only 5 years to be paid under this program by federal funds.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done with this program is that the government is kind of taking their hands off of it. They've just given the money to the states, and they're allowing the states to design their own programs on how they can help people that are in poverty. So after 5 years, the states are cut off, and they're not going to get any more money for that particular person.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with the states being able to make their own policy. It just sounds too much all over the place. You live in one state and you might be okay, and you live in another one and you won't be okay. And obviously, someone that's in poverty doesn't have much choice about moving from one place to another. I think it should just be one standard for all. But that's just my opinion.
That's true. I mean, some of the things that came up on the old AFDC program was that they felt like that it was, because it was an entitlement, there was a lot of children born out of wedlock so that they could get more benefits. There was something that caused families not to have the two-parent families because it was easier for the mom by themselves to get aid versus keeping the family together. In other words, if you had the husband in the home, maybe it was harder for them to get benefits.
Right.
So this program is supposed to change all that. But I don't know if the government really is the one to be able to correct this poverty situation.
Right, because the ones that are making these decisions have never been in this situation of poverty, so they can't really identify what the issues are.
That's true. One other thing I wanted to mention is that, did you realize that there are 47.79 million Americans now on food stamps?
That's a really high rate.
A really, really high rate. And back in the 1970s, about 1 out of every 6 Americans was on food stamps.
Wow.
So it's increased. So I don't know. Poverty is a big topic, and it's not enough time to really cover everything about poverty, because the question is, why do we have poverty? Will we ever be able to eradicate or get rid of poverty? Is there a solution? Is it as simple as all of us having equal pay or equal tax rates charged on us? Will we make it without the government? Is there a possibility of looking at what we can do to bring people up. I know